I'm going to regret making this video in May, aren't I? Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Good to see you again. It's time for one of my favourite videos to do every year. It's not by the end of the year because I get everything wrong, but it's time for some Premier League predictions. I have left this as late as possible because everything is changing so much. I made my notes on this yesterday, write out my table and everything, and stuff's even changed since then. There's signings flying in, there's managers leaving, it's utter chaos. So this is going to be completely wrong, but I've got to do it now or the season's going to start. And we're going to get straight into it. We're going to start at the bottom of the league. We're going to work our way through the relegation places to mid-table, and then obviously towards Europe, top four, and our champions. With Europe, some of you are wondering, are you going to put 6th and 7th as Europe? I don't always get it. It's dependent on the cups. And we're going to predict the cups as well, both European and domestic, so that you kind of know who's getting Europe. And also people want to know who I think are going to win the cups. Anyway, we're going to do individual awards too. So we'll do our Player of the Year, top goal scorer, top assist star, Golden Glove. We might even do Young Player of the Year as well. But I don't think there's any point in wasting time here. We've got a lot of teams to get through, so we might as well get straight into it. So there we go, we've got my beautifully edited table to the side of me. And we need to start filling it in, don't we? So we're going to start at the bottom of the league, as I said. And I don't think there's going to be too many arguments about this one. As I said, and I'm probably going to end up saying it loads of things can change before the end of even the transfer window, let alone the season. But Sheffield United look like they're trying to get relegated. It's the same team, basically, that went down last time, but they've sold Sander Berge, who was their best player, to someone who Burnley, I'll get onto later, I think they are going to stay up, I'll spoil that now. They're still kind of rivals with them, they're both in the same boat, they've both been promoted, and they're selling to them. Obviously, they've let their striker go, there's not really much coming in, they've signed a few players, but they're not people I've heard of. Rhian Brewster isn't exactly what I'd call firepower up front. I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. It's looking so bleak. If you're a Sheffield United fan, let me know what you think. So obviously they might have something up their sleeves, but I just don't see it ending well for them. And for every team, I try and find some positives, a reason maybe they could stay up. And this is the only team where I think there's absolutely no chance. I might end up looking stupid, but surely there's no way Sheffield United even finished 19th. So, moving on up, I think this team will be pretty clear of Sheffield United, but I think they're going to go down anyway. This one might be a shock to some people, but I think a lot of people are going to understand it as well, and that is going to be Wolves. They've lost their manager, and he did so well with them last season after they started badly. Lopetegui, he got them out of quite a hole with a better team than what they have now, actually. The team that Lopetegui saved them with had Neves in it. It had Collins in it. I know it didn't play that much, but they had Jimenez and Costa as well who haven't been replaced. It's a bit of a mess at Wolves. It's not as bad as Sheffield United, but it is getting there. I think they haven't really signed any great replacements from what I've heard. Moutinho, I think, is out the door as well. You might have to correct me on that. The only player I've seen them linked with is Cresswell, but that's probably because he's a West Ham player. Dawson, I think, will do good for them. They've got a few other players that will do pretty well, but I just don't think they're going to have enough. They have obviously brought O'Neill in. He did wonders with a pretty poor Bournemouth team last season, so maybe he'll perform another miracle, but I think that'd be a lot harder. He had a few players at Bournemouth, like Philip Billing and a few others, that had a little bit of flair. They had enough to be a Premier League team. I don't think Wolves have got that anymore. They've got issues with financial fair play as well, and worst of all, they have absolutely ruined the mascot, and I know Wolves fans are fuming about that, so I mean, if there's no justice for Wolfie, surely they deserve to go down. So Wolves are going to finish 19th for me. Right, so moving on to probably one of the most debated places in the league. I think there's a lot of uncertainty about this one. The final relegation place. This is going to be tight with a few teams above it, I think. But I've unfortunately gone with Luton Town. I think they're going to ruffle a few feathers, don't get me wrong. They're very physical. Obviously, they have got Kenilworth Road. They can't play there yet. But that could end up playing into their favour. And I'll tell you why, right? They're going to have a long run of away games at the start of the season. People are looking at that and going, oh no, like, they're finished, they're not going to get any momentum or anything. People are forgetting that means they could obviously be down by that point, the confidence could be low, but if they're still fighting, and I think they will be, they're going to get a big run of games at home towards the end of the season. That could even be enough to keep them up, so I'm not going to rule Luton out. I'm not going to say they're bang on to go down like Sheffield United, or even as much as Wolves, for me. I just think that ultimately they're not going to have enough. They're not a Premier League side. They're going to surprise some people. I can put money on them beating Tottenham or Arsenal at home, but I just don't think that they've got enough. I mean, they've made some okay signings, but nothing that's absolutely jumping out. It's a great story. It would be great if they stayed up, but I just can't see it happening. It doesn't seem sustainable for me. So, 17th. I think there's a team recently that epitomises this place more than anywhere else. I think it's pretty safe to put Everton 17th if you want to base it off the last few seasons. And it is basically the same team that's been finishing there. Obviously, they've finally brought in Danjuma. I don't rate that, honestly. If he binge you off the first time, why go back to him? That is poor from them. But it's Sean Dyche. And if there's a man who can sort you out, who can get you playing, it's probably going to be him. Gray could be going, and I think that's a bit of a kind of under the radar loss for them. I think he's a really solid player, especially off the bench. He dragged them to quite a few extra points last season. They've still got some solid players. Obviously, they've got Pickford in goal. I do actually like Alex Iwobi, and that's probably quite controversial. And Nana as well. He might be going to Man United or somewhere else. If they hold on to him, they do have a pretty good chance. If he goes, they don't replace well, there's a big chance they could go down. But I think it's going to be stressful for Everton again. It's not what Everton fans deserve. They should not be in this situation, especially with a new stadium cooking. It is pretty risky. I don't know what the owners are doing, but I think they will have enough to stay up. So I think they're going to be fine. But I do think it's going to be a stressful one and not an enjoyable season again for Everton. So, next up in 16th place. This is, I think, quite a left field pick, actually. I've got West Ham in 16th. Call me pessimistic, West Ham fans. Some of you might think I'm optimistic. Danny Aaron's had us going down. But obviously, we'll see. It all depends on the transfer activity. Edson Alvarez is finally through the door, which is brilliant. But we need more signs. Even if we get Ward-Prowse and Maguire, which is looking like we will, that's probably not enough. We need another striker. We need some fullbacks. That's not probably going to get attention whatsoever. Sullivan does not want to spend money. We're playing without Rice, obviously. I think that will be okay. I think other players will shine a little bit more without him. Paqueta, I think, is a big worry now. He could end up going to Man City. It's just all up in the air. Aaron Cresswell doesn't want to train when he's been at the club for 9 years, which is so strange. Moyes' ball is painful. There's nothing else I can say about it. It might keep you up, but it's not fun to watch. And we could be relying on a youth player up front. As I said, we haven't signed a striker. Antonio wants to go to El-Faki. It's Mabama and Ings, and that is probably not a Premier League level partnership at the moment. So a lot is resting on Bowen and Paqueta. If Paqueta stays, some new signs as well are needed. I think we'll be okay. Obviously, we're fighting on the European front as well. I can see us going far in that competition again. But we'll just have to wait and see. West Ham are a mess, but so are a lot of teams around them. And just above them is a team that I actually think are pretty organised. We've been talking about teams that are in a mess a lot. I think this team, they didn't go about it the right way last season, but they're doing it properly now, and that is Nottingham Forest. They took a massive gamble last season. If they went down, they would have been in serious trouble financially and just in general. You can't buy that many players and then try and get rid of them if you go down. But they've trimmed the squads down a little bit. They've also made a few decent signs. Alanga is going to be so interesting. I don't know how he's going to do. I really couldn't tell you. He could be solid for them. I think he'll just do okay. He could end up being absolutely groundbreaking. Him and Brennan Johnson on the wings is pretty solid. But they're looking good all over the pitch. They've got some good centre-backs in now. In midfield, obviously, they're just as solid as ever. I think they could do with a few more players. Gibbs White is probably my pick of the players, and that's not going to surprise anyone for them. But I think they'll be okay. Steve Cooper, really solid manager. They'll not go into the relegation zone at any point. There'll be a little bit of maybe anxiety about it, but I think they'll always be hovering slightly above the rest of the pack. So I think they'll be okay. I've got them 15th. So 14th is a little bit of a wild card for me. This could go really wrong in either direction, and that is going to be Bournemouth. It looks like they made some good signings. I really like Kirkes. Kluivert could be pretty decent as well. I don't know too much about him. They've made quite a few other signings. I can't reel them all off the top of my head at the moment, but they're definitely an improved team and have held on to their big players. Apart from, I think, Lerma has gone obviously to Crystal Palace, who we'll get on to later. New manager as well. Bit of a wild card. He wants to play possession football. He wants to play with a high line. He wants to play good, attractive football, which is all well and good, but are Bournemouth good enough to play that? That is the main question. Especially with their back line. I'm not too sure at the moment, I have to be honest with you. They probably will get it eventually, but does he have the time to get it to work before maybe things start to go wrong or he gets sacked? They'll get some good results, they'll play some nice football, but will they win games? That is a big question for me. I'm not too sure it will work at the start, but if they keep faith, I think they'll be okay. We'll have to wait and see with Bournemouth. As I said, bit of a wild card. Could end up in a relegation scrap, could end up surprising everyone and being in the top half, but I've got them 14th. Right, so this is a team actually that I think are going to fall off a bit from last season. We haven't seen that too much yet, and that is going to be Fulham. Okay, I've got them 13th. There's problems with Mitrovic, which is obviously, he's their main player. It's a big problem for them. They have got to replace him and everything. I think Jimenez could end up being an absolute bargain, by the way. I know he hasn't been that good for Wolves. He's had injuries, all of that. 4.5 million. If he even returns you maybe 6 goals this season, that is a decent return for someone that's cost you that amount. I think for a Premier League proven player, if he rediscovers his form, could be signing off the season. Calvin Bassey as well definitely improves him, which is good. But I think a player they've lost, which people don't realise that much, is Manor Solomon. Obviously, he's gone to Tottenham. He was playing for them last season. The amount of goals he scored out of nothing when they were struggling was impressive. And they were actually struggling for me towards the end of last season. I don't know if they were already on the beach or whatever, or whether like people had found them out. But they just weren't as good, and a lot of teams carry that into the next season, that poor form, so that is maybe something to worry about for them. But I think Fulham have got the players and the quality, as well as the manager, to be okay. Especially if they get money for Mitrovic, reinvest it well, and I think they'll be fine. So, the next team is one that I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on in 12th place, and that is going to be Vincent Kompany's Burnley. This is so dependent on if they adapt to the Premier League. They walked the Championship, playing brilliant football in the most untraditional Burnley way possible, but I did catch them a little bit, and it was always good to watch. A lot of players are going to be interested in seeing the Premier League. No Nathan Tella at the moment, unfortunately, but the likes of Benson. It's going to be good to see Cullen back in the Premier League. Obviously, he did play for West Ham, but didn't get much game time. Sander Berge, brilliant signing for me. There's a lot of potential in the Burnley squad as well. If they stay up, I think they're only going to get better, but it's just, will they have the ability to maybe move that extra second faster in the Premier League, because you get a little bit more time in the Championship, you can make maybe a few more mistakes. Burnley do play quite a fearless way, so is it going to backfire on them? It could. It's all down to how they adapt, and I think Kompany's got a good head on his shoulders. He's only going to improve as a manager. I think it's going to work for Burnley. I've got them 12. So the next one, I've said a lot of clubs are in turmoil, a lot of clubs are a bit of a mess. Some people have said that Palace are a mess, but I don't really think they are. People are going, oh, Zaha's gone, they rely on Zaha, they're going to be in trouble. I don't think in the last season Zaha's been their most important player, or even their second. I think Eze and Elise are the main men for Palace. I know City and Chelsea are interested in Elise. Everyone would obviously love to have Eze, but I think they will hold on to them. I don't know why, I've just got that feeling at the moment. So I think as long as they stay, they've got those players to build around. Really solid back four, solid midfield as well. Jefferson Lerma, I spoke about him earlier. Brilliant addition, obviously a bit of a loss for Bournemouth as well. I think he improves that midfield so much, but they just need to sign a proper striker. They've got loads of okay strikers, loads of alright strikers, the likes of Edouard, Mateta. I prefer Ayew playing a little bit further back, but if they sign a proper striker, I think they're going to be a team that a lot of people are going to be worried about. Need to get better at defending set pieces as well, but Roy Hodgson, I think he's going to do the job again. Palace, 11th, and pretty safe. Maybe a good cup run too. So we are now moving into the top half of the table, and every club has their own problems, but Brentford's ones are quite interesting. Ivan Toney, he's basically out for the season. Obviously, he's going to play towards the end. But do you spend money on replacing him, or do you hope someone else can do the job until he's back? That's the dilemma they've got. Raya is obviously going as well, but they've replaced him pretty well and pretty quickly. I just have faith in them. More than the team, I just have faith in Thomas Frank. He always seems to adapt to everything so well. And similarly to Brighton, who obviously we'll get on to soon, they do have a lot of players who just come out of nowhere, play brilliantly. Johan Wissa's one I'm always really impressed with. They've got, obviously, Buemo's injured, I think, for a little bit at the start of the season, but he's going to be a big player for them yet again. And they've got a few players that maybe didn't have enough minutes last season that I think will maybe come into the fray a bit more this season. Aaron Hickey and Keane Lewis-Potter, both very good young players. I think we'll see them a little bit more. I think Brentford will be fine. I had them maybe having second season syndrome last season. I was a bit worried about them, but I think they're going to be pretty comfortable. We need to beat them this season, though, because we haven't beaten them in the Premier League and we don't want a Brighton situation. And speaking of them, Brighton are going to be in 9th. You can guarantee them 6 points at least against West Ham, so that's something for them. Europa League as well for them. Although they always beat us, I do admire Brighton in the way they work. They sign cheap players, play great football. I don't think there's anything not to love about them. Even with the stadium, they sell local produce only, decent atmosphere for a small stadium. Everything about this club is just being done the right way, whether it's on the pitch or off the pitch, and I want to see them do well. The question for me is, are they going to be able to adapt to playing in another competition? I think De Zerbi will be fine with it, but has he got enough depth? No one knows what's going on with Caicedo. They've brought some good players in, though. They've got the likes of João Pedro, which is a bit of a big money signing for them. They could get Kudus in as well. We'll have to wait and see. Evan Ferguson is going to get a lot more minutes this season as well. But the thing is with Brighton, I mean, everyone's confident, aren't they? If they sell their best players, they're just going to spawn in some random bloke from the Bolivian 4th Division that's just as good. So I think Brighton are going to be absolutely fine. I've only got them 9th because I think they might focus on trying to win a trophy maybe this year. So Brighton 9th. Could end up doing a lot better, though. I don't see them doing much worse than that. That is maybe a little bit of pessimism towards Brighton there. They could do a little bit better. But Brighton 9th, think they're going to have a good season, though. And once they've had a taste of that European competition, I don't have them to win it this year. I reckon next season they'll be back in Europe, and after that, they can maybe push for consistency there. So another team that have European ambitions this season, not just getting into Europe, but trying to win a European trophy. And has there been a better chance in a long time for Aston Villa to get their hands on some top-class silverware. They're in the Conference League, of course, which does give them a little bit more of ability to rest compared to teams in Europa, obviously that being West Ham, Liverpool and Brighton. They might get some easier games, but you never know, the draw can be harsh towards you. There's a lot of good teams in it this year. They should avoid the likes of Frankfurt and a few others early on. We didn't have the easiest group last year. We did get Anderlecht and Steaua Bucharest, who are obviously, they're not the best, but they are quite respected teams. You could get 3 absolute nobodies. I think Villa fans would probably take that, although obviously you do like a good marquee tie in there, so there are some teams that maybe they'd want a harder game, but for me it's just getting as far into the tournament as possible. But I think they've got the depth to have a little bit of a run in the league as well and do solid in the league, so I don't think it'll affect them that much until maybe we get into the late stages. They should be pushing for Europe, maybe even top 4, but I think they focus on the Conference League late, they might start to fall away a bit. Diaby looks like he's going to be a special signing. There's just so many players coming through the door that you wouldn't associate with Aston Villa in the last few years. They just seem to be getting better and better. Unai Emery, you've got to trust him. Obviously, he didn't have the best time at Arsenal, but he is a top class manager. The only thing that maybe stands out as a negative for me for Villa is how many times have we had this false storm with them, signing players. Everyone goes, they're a class team now, they are one to watch, and then they finish 14th. I think because we've seen Emery last season and what he's done will be okay there. Ollie Watkins only getting better. Don't see him going anywhere either. I think they're going to be pretty good, Aston Villa. I've got them 8th. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a little higher. Now, I am going to get a lot of hate for this one. 7th place. I do think this will be enough for Europe this season. That's giving you a little bit of a hint for later on. But ending up in the Conference League, I have got Manchester United. A lot of people aren't going to like that, are they? I just don't think that they've improved as much as the teams around them, especially for how much money they've spent. Onana could absolutely change the game for them. A lot of people are going to have them higher up because of him and a few others. But I just don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. He's going to play out with his feet and stuff. But you can't blame De Gea anymore, guys. You can't even blame Maguire because it looks like he's going as well. You're going to have to put responsibility on other players. Have they got enough up front? Rasmus Højlund needs to adapt straight away or everyone's going to be on his back. He's going to be a fraud in 2 weeks' time. That's just unfortunately the way, especially at a club like Man United, and I'm not denying it's probably the biggest club in England. That toxic atmosphere has cost a few players confidence over time, the likes of Sancho and a few others, but it's instant results that are needed at Man United, and I think that pressure is holding them back a little bit. It's actually what is dragging them back sometimes. It's going to sound strange, but for me, solid team. Obviously, Casemiro is only going to be getting on. They probably need to replace him next season. Bruno Fernandes, great player. Mason Mount is an interesting one. I don't think he's going to be that good for him. He's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to be surprising anyone, really. But I just think they could have spent their money better, and I think teams that don't have other commitments, obviously United in Champions League, may overtake them this season. So, one of those teams who does have other commitments, obviously, is going to be Newcastle. They're in the Champions League as well. It's their first time in it for absolute years. So, are they going to go all in on the Champions League, or are they going to focus on maybe a bit of a more all-round approach? And it's Eddie Howe. He's a very smart man. That's what he's going to go for. Obviously, he's got Jason Tyndall, the absolute genius, helping him out as well. They can maybe do with a little bit more depth. Tonali, brilliant signing. Looks like there might be a few others in through the door as well. That midfield, him and Bruno, that is brilliant link up. Obviously, you're looking at the midfielders. We've got Joe Linton in there as well. Willock, even Anderson and Longstaff. I think they're absolutely stacked in midfield. Maybe could do with another defender, maybe another fullback. But up front, mate, Isak is going to absolutely cook this season. I'm telling you that now. Towards the end of last season, he was getting there. Full season, hopefully with no injury. He knows his teammates, knows the league a lot better. It's not just his goal scoring, though. His assists, his link-up play, I love him. Always been a fan, but last season, just wow. I wish we'd signed him or we had a chance to. Just love him. So, Isak, I think he's going to be one to watch. He's not going to get my player of the season, but he is going to have a special year, and Newcastle are going to finish 6th. I also fancy him to get last 8 in the Champions League. So, 5th, and just missing out on the Champions League. I'm going to have them 4th until the last day of the season and then fall into 5th, which gives you a big clue on who it's going to be. It is going to be Top Spur themselves. Ange Postecoglou, great appointment for me. Think he's a great man. It's really easy to relate to. He just gets it, doesn't he, by the looks of it. I don't want him to do well because he's at Tottenham, but otherwise I would. I think he's great man, great manager, great ideas, forward-thinking football, straight to the point. Easy to buy into as a fan and as a player as well. So, Maddison, I don't think he's going to have any problems getting into that side and doing well there. I think he's maybe what they need, because recently Spurs has just been boot the ball long. Let's hope Kane or Son gets on the end of it and finishes it. And they've just relied on lethal finishing rather than reliable build-up play. So Maddison is going to be a massive, massive help for that. I really like Kulusevski as well. He's only getting better. Son needs to fix up and have a better season. For me, he's just not been good enough recently. And then we've got the question of Kane. Is he moving or not? I don't know as I'm recording this. The bid has been accepted. It's been announced just a few hours ago. So I don't know. That is a massive loss for them. And people are going to know they have money. They're not going to let him be replaced easily. So that is just the main question for me. If Harry Kane goes, it could all fall apart for Spurs. Because people don't realise just how much he maybe just encapsulates the club. How much the club is just like linked to Harry Kane now. Obviously, they've got their South Korean fans and Son and that. But so much is just linked to Harry Kane. He's basically the face of the club. If he goes, just not on the pitch, but off the pitch as well, I think it is going to be maybe panic stations to Spurs, because they are going to have to absolutely change everything. And I know it sounds like I'm being a bit over the top on that, but he is so entrenched into that club. I think it'll be massive if he goes. He's given them a lot of service. I don't think there'll be too many complaints. He could have gone years and years ago, but if it is Kane's time, I think it will just be a bit of a shock to the system for Spurs. Moving on to our top four now, enough chat about small clubs from North London. We are going to have Chelsea in fourth. This could be really wrong. Probably not too much higher, but they could be a lot lower. Obviously, they finished 12th last season. They've signed and signed and signed yet again. I don't know when financial fair play is going to get involved. Whether they're going to have money for the next 7 years, who knows, because everyone's on stupidly long contracts. Jackson finally looks like what they need up front, though. Lukaku obviously wasn't it. Those target man strikers did not work for them. Neither did the false nines. I want to see Havertz. I know he's at Arsenal now, played in his proper position, see if he has actually still got that flair he was known for at Leverkusen, because why are you playing him as a shadow striker, false nine kind of thing? That's not what he does. But I think they're finally going to actually be forced to play a proper striker now. And Kunku will be massive for them when he comes in, but he's injured at the moment, and that might be a blessing in disguise. Stops them playing him as a striker, means that Jackson is going to have to play. He's got that good blend of power, but he's also got the pace. He's not going to be static like Lukaku, but he's also going to be able to hold the ball up better than the likes of Havertz could last season. He's fearless as well. Really like him. I think he might be their best signing. Enzo's going to have a full season in the Premier League, which is good. And this team, if they get it playing, it's only going to get better. And I think that's what Todd Bowley's hoping for. Pochettino is probably the right man to guide them as well. He's going to have them playing attacking football without kind of the worry they had under Potter and Lampard. A lot of players, I think, are only going to get better as well. Sanchez, first choice goalkeeper for me over Kepa. Kepa obviously could be moving on. Malo Gusto could be one to watch. Badish Shele I very much like as well. But they've just got so many players. I don't think Mudryk is going to hit it this season. I will be honest with you. I don't think he's that good. Madueke, though, he could be in for a big year too. The thing is with Chelsea, if it's not working, you have so many players who will take that place. No Europe as well, so maybe not even enough games to play them. We could see maybe a bit of disharmony there, but they have got rid of some deadwood to Saudi, and that is definitely not suspicious whatsoever, Todd Bowley. But I think that lack of Europe that them and Spurs have will be why they finish so high up in the table. So Chelsea fourth. So this team, I think, are a little bit off challenging to top two. That is going to be Liverpool. They need a CDM, and for me, they maybe even need another centre-back just for cover in case there's an injury. They've signed some great players this time. Soblazai, however you say it. I'd love to see some Scouse people trying to pronounce that. It would be funny. And McAllister, great signings for me. Obviously, Milner is finally out the door. He's going to be a loss in on a leadership role, as is Jordan Henderson, of course. But I think it was their time to move on. I've never really rated Henderson. Milner's a great servant, but he's like 37, isn't he? They just need to make a few more signings. I think they're okay up front. They've got Darwizi, obviously. I think he's going to have a much better year. Salah is probably going to be desperate to maybe win another trophy before his time is up at Liverpool. Luis Diaz as well, obviously missed a lot of last season, injured, and they've got Jota as well. I'm probably missing people. There's Cody Gakpo. There's so many attackers for them. Trent's going to have the whole season playing in that more creative drifting role, which I really, really like for him. I don't rate him as a defender whatsoever, but I think he's really special on the ball and creating stuff. So that is a big plus for me that he's been playing there the whole season. But Lavia might not be going there anymore, and that could be a little bit of a worry because they do need a proper CDM. Who's going to play there at the moment? They just don't have one. They've got Bajkatic, or if you say it, that's a lot of responsibility for someone who maybe isn't an out-and-out proper defensive midfielder, because McAllister is known for getting forward. Solazai is known for getting forward. There could be a little bit of trouble there for Liverpool, but I think they've got a lot more quality than the other teams. They're only in the Europa League, so they can rest a little bit more than those around them. It's great experience for the younger players as well, so I think they're going to have no problem getting third place. So here we go, the moment you've been waiting for, and Even now, I'm not entirely convinced on my decision for this. I'm going to weigh up both the teams and give you my verdict. Arsenal, they're good, right? I think other teams did fall off a bit last season, though. Maybe there wasn't as much competition as there will be. So, Liverpool are going to be harder to beat. Chelsea are going to be harder to beat. Spurs are going to be harder to beat if they keep Kane. A lot of players had their best seasons last year. Is it going to be a one-off? Was it a freak incident that maybe Gabriel, Xhaka, Partey all suddenly started playing well at the same time? Or is it just Arteta? Is it going to keep going? That's the main question for me. Rice has come in, needs to play deeper as the 6 and not the 8. He played at the 8 in Community Shield, had some good moments, but it's not where you want Declan Rice to be playing, I'll be honest. Play him further back, have someone else playing that role slightly in front of him, let him do what he's good at. You spent 105 million on him, it has to work. But he's not going to be their biggest signing for me. It's going to be really controversial. This isn't because he left West Ham or anything. I think he's going to do well. But Yuri and Timber looks like the real deal. They just needed that in defence. Carries the ball well, tackles well. He's just good at everything from what I've seen. Looks like a real quality signing. I think Man United have probably missed out there. While him and Sandro Martinez might not work together, I do think United have missed out and they should have got him. It's just interesting with Arsenal though. They've got Europe to contend with this year. They didn't last year. So they've got their ups and their downs, but I do think they're just going to get better. And it is the Community Shield. They won against City, but it is maybe a good psychological thing for them. They did over-celebrate it for me, but that's not my position to tell them what they can and can't celebrate, is it? So we'll move on to City. Maybe a bit weaker than last season, incidentally. No Ilkay Gundogan. People are going to go, he didn't play all the time or whatever. He was massive for them. He got them through some big moments. Obviously, he scored some goals in the run-in where they won games by a goal, or they ended up winning it comfortably, but he needed to make that breakthrough. Got obviously that goal after like 20 seconds, if it was even that, in the FA Cup. And yeah, he's a big loss for them. His experience as well. Kovacic is coming in, underrated signing for me. He's going to do really well. I'm not surprised they need one more player or want one more player with Mahrez gone. Whether it's Paqueta or Elise or someone else, I don't know. Doku is on their list now as well. I think he'd do well there. We need to wait and see. But they do have the cheat code that is Haaland, whilst Arsenal do not have that striker who's going to score that many goals. Jesus is great. Can't stay fit though. More of a link-up player. I do think City might edge it because of Haaland. And Varadol's coming as well. Makes that defence even better. So it is really tight. It might go down to the wire even more than last year. But I think if City start well, the title is theirs because it wasn't even really... Obviously, Arsenal did bottle it a little bit, but it wasn't even really their fault that much. Because City, as soon as they get into like December time, they get on a winning run and they don't stop. It's just what they do. They've started season slowly before and caught up to Liverpool. So Arsenal aren't the only ones in that situation. But Arsenal have got that in their heads this season. Will they bottle it again? Is Saka going to get a penalty in an important game? Who knows? Who knows? But I think City are going to edge it out, but it might even go down to the last day of the season this time. So there we go. I hope I've given good reasons for you. I've got City to win the league. We will go through, obviously, my winners for everything else as well. We have got, obviously, our player of the season. I'm going to go Haaland again, which obviously makes him top goal scorer as well. I just think there's no stopping him. He flopped in the Community Shield. Who cares? He flopped in the Community Shield last year. Watching back 4 against Burnley this weekend. And other than that, top assister. KDB is putting in those crosses, so I'm tempted to go for him. I think I will. I'm going to go KDB with that one. Obviously, he's got to stave off some injuries as well, and he is starting to get a little bit older now. Has a lot of competition, has to supply the wings as well, so he might be getting a lot of the key passes that end up helping the assister, if that makes sense. But I think KDB will get that just because when you're playing with Haaland, you have so many opportunities to get assists. Young Player of the Year, I think, is a really easy one. I'm going to go with Bukayo Saka. He's still only 21. You've got to remember that. He'll have a great season, I have no doubt, but the media do love him as well. So I think that award will be his. I don't see anyone else getting it. Maybe Martinelli, but I don't think that is really up for debate. And then Golden Glove, probably Ederson, just because City don't concede that often. Wouldn't be surprised if it went to a different goalkeeper, but I'm going to have to go with Ederson for that as well. And our last thing, we had to talk about the cups, didn't we? I haven't forgotten about that, don't worry. So we'll go with the Carabao first. I think it was the only thing they didn't win, wasn't it? This was known as City's competition. They'll want it back. They haven't won it in I think the last 2 seasons. They'll want that competition back. So City for the Carabao, but I reckon that might let another team in, and I've got United for the FA Cup as City try and concentrate on the Champions League. Speaking of the Champions League, I don't think they're going to win it. So I think they've got a little bit more competition this year. Real Madrid are looking better, so I think it might be their time. I don't know why. I've got a feeling it's going to be another one for Madrid to win that. We are going to get some English glory in Europe, though, in the Europa League, in my opinion, and that is going to come through Liverpool. Brighton will give it a good go. I think we'll get about quarterfinals, and then we will just be outclassed. Brighton will give it a good go, maybe we can get to semis, but I've got Liverpool to win it. That Europa League is really competitive this season. Depending on the Champions League draw, we could have some big teams drop down too, but I do think Liverpool are just too good for that competition. And finally, the Conference League. Villa, I love the fan base. I love them to win it. But I don't think they will. I think it's going to be Frankfurt. They've got that European pedigree. That atmosphere is just something special. Obviously, they have won the Europa League, unfortunately. But I don't know why. Juventus aren't going to be in it. It's going to be Fiorentina again. They'd love to get to the final and avenge last season. There could be some good teams drop down. Maybe we could do what Sevilla do in the Europa League and just drop down to the Conference League and keep winning it. Who knows? But yeah, I just don't think Villa are going to do it. I think they're going to get very, very far. They might focus on the league, though. I don't know how seriously they'll take it. A lot depends on that. But for their fans, I think the further you get in that competition, the more enjoyable it becomes. You get to go to some great countries. You become really invested in it, even if you're sceptical at first. But I'm going to go with Frankfurt. So sorry, Villa fans. Maybe people will respect us a bit more if English teams don't win it. Maybe that's part of it. But I'm going to have a Villa-Frankfurt final won by Frankfurt. And there we go. That is it. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about my predictions, of course. Leave your own down below. You don't have to do all of it, but maybe a Premier League table. If your team's involved, let me know where you think they're going to finish, whether that's in Europe or whether that is in the Premier League itself. So make sure you get your comments in. I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Got a lot more Premier League and football-related content coming this year. So if you're into that stuff, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. One more time, thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon, and goodbye.